Hey guys, welcome to our GIT Fundamentals series. In this series, we are going to demystify the version control together and make you feel at home with one of the most powerful tool in modern software development. So, even if you have never touched Git before, don't worry, you are exactly in the right place. By the end of this video, you will understand what Git is, why it is essential, and how to start using it today. So grab coffee, get comfy, and let's dive in. So, first of all, what is Git and why should you even care? So, imagine you're writing a document, say report.doc, and you make some changes. Then, in order to keep your previous changes, you will create a copy and name it report underscore one or something else. Then you might have to make more changes. Then you are going to rename it, copy it and rename it to report.to.doc. And very soon you will have almost the same content spread across multiple files, and it becomes difficult to track which change is in which file. So Git is the solution to overcome this problem. And this scenario is especially difficult to manage in the software development where a single project can have hundreds of files. Any changes would have to be tracked into new files, and then it becomes difficult to track which changes in which file. So, this is where version control steps in. And when it comes to version control, Git is the gold standard as of today. This is the most popular version control software used in the world. So, it actually is a distributed version control system. It tracks the history and changes to our files. And then it also enables collaboration because Git is distributed. So people working on the same software can work independent of each other. And then when their changes are done, those changes can be merged together. So the work, it somewhat looks like this. You have a working directory and Git will track the changes. And once you commit those changes, your Git commit is ready to be shared with others. Similarly, if others are making commits, their commits can be shared with you, and that enables collaboration. So I guess we already discussed why use version control. So it tracks history, and because we can always go back to the previous version, we can experiment safely, and we can collaborate with others without uh, creating the conflicts or sharing the files over email or some other medium. So let's get started by installing the Git. And for this, I will go to my Git demo node and install Git by running the command sudo apt git. Okay, so the Git is installed now because it's a very small software. Now, because I'm on Ubuntu Linux, I used sudo apt install git. But suppose if you are on macOS, you can use brew install git. Alternatively, if you are on Windows, you can download the installer from git-scm.com. This is one of the most used Git on Windows, but there are a hell lot of other Git installations available which you can download and use. So let's verify the installation by running the command git hyphen hyphen version. So as you can see, command returned the git version 2.43.0, which means git is now installed on this machine. So the very next step is to do the initial setup. Now, in the initial setup, we have to configure a few of the git settings, such as who is going to use this git, what is his name, and what is his or their email address. So let's get going. Uh, and this configuration can be completed on two levels, global as well as local. Right now, we are going to do the global config. And the two essential parameters we want to configure is get user.name, which is Sudhir Chauhan, and user.email address. So with this, I guess we are ready to use Git. Now, which global parameters are configured? We can check the value of this parameter by simply specifying just the parameter. So as you can see, the value is set to contact chauhansudhir@gmail.com. We can also list so when we are listing, we can see that the parameters we configured are listed here. So few more parameters we can configure is or are recommended to be configured are which editor we want to use with Git and what is going to be our default Git branch name. Don't worry if you don't understand what Git branch is. We will discuss it later, but for now, let's configure them. And the parameter we want to set is core.editor, and we are going to set it to Vim. Now, next is the default branch name. And for this, we are going to set the init dot default branch, and we are going to call it main. This is just a label, so instead of main, you can put any other name as well. Now, if we go back and check the list of our global parameters, you will see we have configured the 4 parameters. So natural question is where this config is stored. On a Linux or Mac system, this is stored in your home directory in a file called .gitconfig, and Windows also follows the same structure. So same file gets created in your home directory. Let's see the content and probably you will have a better understanding of it. So let's do a ls home ls-a, and here you should be able to see a .git file. Now when we see the content of this file, you will see those parameters are configured here and they are ready to use now. So how does git config works? So when we set the values in the git config, uh, git settings will be loaded at runtime and git is going to use them. So when I'm going to commit, git is going to use my name and email address as the committer name and email address. And suppose if I'm going to edit a commit message, then git is going to use Vim as the preferred editor. So the natural question arises is, what is a repository? Basically, repository is a directory where you keep your files and you ask Git to track those files. So there are two ways we can create a repository. We can either do a Git init to start a new repository, or we can do a Git clone to copy existing repository. So here we are going to do a Git init and start a new repository. So let me create a directory, Git demo. Now let's go to this directory and do a Git init. As you can see, a new empty Git repository is initialized inside the Git demo directory. So let's now understand lifecycle of a file when Git manages it. So at the beginning of its lifecycle, a file is untracked. And when we are going to run the Git status, it will show that we have new files and those files are not tracked by Git. Why? Because Git won't start tracking your files automatically. You have to tell Git which files to track. So once the file is tracked by Git and you make some changes, then you have to run Git staging command to stage the file. And once the files or the changes are staged, you have to commit. So we need to start tracking the file once. After this, staging and committing happens on every change you want to track in the Git. So that's how it looks like. You start with a untracked file and then you run a command git add, which will stage the file. So once you stage the file, you can commit, and once the file is committed, Git won't Git will still track it. So if you make a change, Git will know that file is modified. Then you have to perform a git add again to stage the file and commit. So this loop keeps on going again and again. Now let's see what happens when we do this. So let's create a new file, touch. This is a test file. Here we will test the Git. Let's save this file and run a Git status. As you can see, Git is showing that we have a file called readme.md and it's untracked. So let's start tracking it. For this, we will do a git add readme.md. Now let's go back and run our Git status again. As you can see now, Git shows that we have a new file. It's tracked. but it's not committed. So let's go ahead and commit it. Git commit. And with commit, we have to put a meaningful message. And we will say add new file. Now, when we run the git status, you will see there is nothing to be done. But now we can go ahead and inspect our work by git log. So as you can see, we have the author whose name, email address, and the command uh, and the commit comment available here. So as we have already seen, the steps we need to follow is git status, followed by git add, and then we commit with a message. After this, we can inspect the history with git log. So what exactly is a commit? So when we make a change and commit it, Git will create a checkpoint in its history and call it commit A, or basically Git will assign a unique hash ID to the commit. And then when we go back and make one more change, Git will assign a new hash value and track it as a separate commit. So all the previous commits are sequentially arranged, but the current commit is called head. So as you can see here, we have only one commit and it's called head. But if I go back and add more content and more commits, so we are testing commits. Now let's run git add followed by git commit. Update the file. Now if we go back and check our git log, we are going to see two commits. And the latest commit is the main commit and it's called head. Now, if I go back and say add one more commit, can you guess what will happen? Update the file again. Let's go and check our git log. So now the latest comment is at head of the main branch, and our previous comments are sequentially organized one after another. And the hash value we discussed is this. So git log also provides us an option of showing only the limited amount of information. Now, in this case, what it is doing is it is truncating its hash value and only showing a part of the hash value and the comment. So let's summarize quickly. So Git tracks and manages the code changes. Basically, it can track and manage any text files. It is installed globally and configured with the identity to identify who's committing. Now, life cycle of a file is that you add, edit, stage, and commit. And then this edit, stage, and commit is repeated again and again. We also understood how to create a new Git repository with Git init versus cloning an existing repository with Git clone. So with this, let's close this short introduction to the Git fundamentals. In the next part, we are going to cover working with Git branches and other concepts.